Howdy, welcome back to the pod and Happy New Year. It has been a hot minute since I recorded one of these and I really miss chatting to you guys, but I hope that whoever celebrates has had a wonderful Christmas and New Year. And if it wasn't so magical for you, let me extend to you a little virtual hug, and I hope you can get some enjoyment or comfort out of our chat today or learn something. I do apologise. I know it's been a while since I released an episode. I only intended to take 1 week off recording and filming and writing over Christmas, but 1 week turned into 3, which I'm actually really not mad about. I think it probably did me a lot of good to take the latter half of December a little bit slower, and it allowed me to be much more present with the people that I was spending it with and with myself. But I'm really excited to be recording again today and to be back in the habit of writing every day, and I can feel it like slowly refilling my tank, which is much needed at the moment. I am also sending extra love to anybody who is just feeling completely worn out after the peak social season, and I know that my little introvert's ass is going to need at least the next 28 business days to recover, probably more like 56. Basically, I know that quite a few people are probably going to be feeling more fragile and or a bit more run down right now. We are now midwinter, it's cold, the days are short. Half of the UK has had this monstrous flu in the last couple of months. I'm pretty sure I was coming off of the tail end of it when I filmed my 6th episode. Christmas and New Year are very go, busy celebrations, and I know that they can bring up a lot of difficult emotions for a lot of people. So if any of this sounds like you, just know that I'm here, I see you. Be gentle with yourself for the next few weeks, and just know that it is probably quite a sensible time to be taking things a little bit slower, and I'll be holding your hand from here. But equally, if you're ready and raring to go for the new year, or if you're still riding the high of a holiday season, or just feeling great in general, or if you're listening to this at some point in the far future and it's the middle of summer and you're sunbathing on a beach somewhere and just loving life, then more power to you. You can still have a handhold as well if you want one. This is kind of a New Year's themed episode, and also kind of not, because I'm really not a big New Year's enthusiast or resolutions girly at all. In fact, actually, this morning was the first day that I remembered to put 25 instead of 24 as the date in my journal, lol. But I know full well, because I've seen it across all of my own social media feeds, that everybody and their mum's dog is probably telling you right now that now is the time to lock in, level up, glow up, get a new body and a new personality to boot, go into ghost mode and become completely unrecognisable, become a completely new and improved version of yourself in 2025, and to basically fix your pitiful, broken, worthless self. Don't get it twisted, I love me some motivational content, and I'm a huge advocate for it is possible to do a complete 180 on your life and yourself if you want to, because I believe that that is what I did. But I have never been a big fan of New Year's resolutions, or the whole concept of new year, new me, and let me tell you for why. Firstly, if you decide that there's something you want to change about yourself or your life, or a new habit that you want it to implement into your routine, or a new skill that you want to learn, the whole concept of waiting until January 1st to start has never made sense to me. You want to start going to the gym or learning to run or going to dance classes, then wait until tomorrow or the next day that you have off of work or uni or school and start then. You want to start a social media channel, start brainstorming tonight. If you want to stop scrolling before bed and start reading for 10 minutes instead, you can start tonight. I became an infinitely happier person when I developed a bias towards action and acting on my impulses and desires as and when I got them. Instead of saying, oh, I'll wait a couple of months until January 1st because that's the correct time to start new things, and that will give me plenty of time for the initial excitement to wear off so that I never actually have to put in the effort to get it off the ground, and by then I won't feel guilty about it. Secondly, you shouldn't want to change your life because the internet's telling you that that's what successful, high-value people do on January 1st. You should do it for you and to make yourself happy, which means that you should do it on your timeline and your own timeline alone, which will be the one that works for you. There's nothing magical about the date January 1st. You don't get any more kudos points for setting yourself crazy, ambitious New Year's resolutions, especially if you have completely wild expectations of yourself and you overwhelm yourself by midway through January and fall off a wagon completely. Because then you end up feeling like you've blown your chances to make 2025 a year that you finally sort yourself out and become that perfect, elusive version of you. And then you start internally beating up on yourself and making yourself feel like shit. You don't have to set any New Year's resolutions or goals for yourself if you don't want to. I haven't. In fact, you don't have to change anything about yourself or your life right now if you don't want to, or if it's not the right time for you. But if you do want to, firstly, make sure that they are achievable, which for most people is going to look like starting small. It's okay, and in fact, it's amazing and brave to set yourself huge, ambitious goals and start working towards achieving them and making them a reality. But you have to build the ladder from the bottom rung up, or you're not going to be able to reach the higher up ones. Or you have to play levels 1 through 9 before you can jump in and know how to complete level 10, which I spoke in more detail about in my 6th episode. Real lasting change is built by playing the long game and laying down solid foundations. So if you want to run a marathon by the end of the year, but you've never run before, and on day 1 you just start by doing the first run of couch to 5k, that doesn't mean that you're not pushing yourself hard enough. In fact, it's far more sensible and sustainable than just taking off on day 1 and seeing how far and fast you can run from the off. That path don't lead nowhere good. Fucking hell, that was Bristolian. You are not selling yourself short or being lazy by starting small. Starting small is starting sensibly. When I was building the habit of taking cold morning showers for the dopamine benefits, I started off on day 1 with just 10 minutes under the cold water. 10 minutes? 10 seconds under the cold water. I would never recommend a cold shower for 10 minutes. And I added 10 seconds each day from there on out. Or most days. Some days I just added 5. Pretty sure there were some days where I didn't add any extra time at all if I felt like that was going to guarantee that I at least showed up for myself that day. If you want to experience the mental health and physical health benefits of a consistent workout routine in 2025, but you haven't moved your ass since your last PE class in secondary school, there's nothing to stop you starting with just doing 10 jumping jacks on day 1 and then adding an extra 5 or 10 or 1 each day after that, if that's what feels achievable to you. Just build the habit of showing up for yourself and making baby steps. You can start throwing the big weights around a couple of levels later. I am giving you permission to start small. Lasting change is slow change, and real results are slowly acquired results. Secondly, maybe take some time to check that you are definitely doing it for you and that whatever change it is feels right for you and your life at the moment. Creating Happiness crew members use social media for education and entertainment purposes only, and to enrich their own lives, not as a dictator to tell us what we should or shouldn't be doing or what our lives should or shouldn't look like. So listen to how any motivational New Year's content makes you feel. If you find it inspiring and uplifting and positive, then great, keep taking it in. If, however, anything makes you feel like you have to change everything all at once right now, or if anything makes you feel panicky or icky or stressed or worthless, just smile, know that that message isn't what's meant for you right now, and swipe. We are all so different with such crazy different lives, and that means that no one message is ever going to be right for everybody at any one time. Also, if a message isn't meant for you right now, that doesn't make it good or bad, and it also doesn't mean that you're any less of a person either. But for anybody who has set themselves goals for the new year or is trying to implement any change in their lives currently, I'm going to state the obvious and say that is probably going to be taking up a large amount of your energy. So it would probably benefit you to reduce or shrink some of the current energy sinkholes in your life, which is what we're going to talk about now. And equally, if you're like me and you haven't set yourself any new resolutions or goals, I think this could still be of use to you, because I think it's a useful topic to think about at any point in your life. I really don't believe in setting unachievable standards for ourselves, and I think whilst trying to eliminate or reduce any negative habits in our lives is a really positive and admirable thing, I don't think excessively or obsessively regulating our behavior is conducive to our happiness. So this isn't a lecture about 3 behaviors that you absolutely must never engage in, and if you do, you're less of a well-developed and successful human being. It's about natural behaviors that I don't think serve me and that I want to gently address and reduce as I observe myself engaging in them. Our first energy sinkhole is comparison. Comparing ourselves to other people is a natural human tendency. We all feel jealousy and insecurity at some point in our lives, and most of us probably feel it frequently. My aim isn't to never allow myself to compare myself to another human being ever again, because that would be an even bigger waste of energy, as it's a completely impossible task. Instead, I would like to get quicker at identifying when I am feeling jealous or inferior, and instead of letting those feelings influence my thoughts and bring me further down, I want to start allowing myself to feel them without judgment and to channel them in a more useful direction. Then the next step is to decide to use them as a guide to what I desire for myself instead of a weapon to use against myself. Years ago, a really dear friend told me something that a family member told her that she believed to be true, which was that every emotion is either coming from a place of love or a place of fear, which to me rings true. I personally find it really useful in getting to the root of where my thoughts and feelings are coming from on a daily basis, and I think it's especially applicable here. When we get jealous, I think what we're really feeling is fear that we can't have what that other person has too. And in that sense, jealousy goes hand in hand with a scarcity mindset. Because if you believe that there is not enough love or happiness or success or wealth or job opportunities for everybody to go around, then of course, if somebody else is succeeding or abundant in one of those areas, logically that means there is not as much left over for other people, including yourself. But transitioning to an abundance mindset allows us to believe that there is enough of all of these things to go around for everybody, which I personally do believe. And once you're thinking from a place of abundance, you can use that jealousy as a learning opportunity to figure out what it is that that person has that you really want. To pull an example straight out of my last episode on body image, when you look at somebody else and think that you want their face or skin or body, is it that you actually want their body, or is it that you imagine that they feel better about themselves or more confident because of the way that they look and that you want to experience that? Or is it that you want to experience the attention and external validation that you think that might get them? Then you might ask yourself whether you're confusing attention and validation over your appearance for love, because I've definitely been there. And from that, you might come to the conclusion that if it's self-love and confidence that you want to feel, and that's why you wish that you looked different or got more attention and praise, maybe instead of staying in that place of jealousy, you could allow it to motivate you to work on validating yourself and giving that love and attention to yourself. Another story that I've got relating to jealousy is one from my own life a couple of months ago. If this is anybody's first time listening, or for anybody who doesn't know, I did a music degree in performance. I started seriously training to be a professional violinist when I was 14, and that was my big life goal for a very long time, up until midway around last year. I was talking to a friend from uni a couple of months back about everybody that we knew and what they were doing now career-wise and living situation-wise, and she's still quite good friends, I think, with one of my old housemates. Let's call her Kat, the housemate, for the sake of this story. And she told me that Kat was about to debut in a West End pit band, which is fucking huge. And upon hearing this, I had a huge, ugly jealousy spike, which really wasn't pleasant because I immediately began to feel really inferior. So, as is appropriate when life gives you lemons, I went home and did a fat journaling session about it. Firstly, I had to do some rational thinking around the feelings of inferiority because they were completely unwarranted. We are all on our separate paths on separate timelines. It's really not a race, and just because somebody has something or has achieved something now that you haven't yet, that definitely doesn't mean that you can't or won't in the future. People get married at 60, people change jobs or start careers at 50, 40, 30. I'm only fucking 23. Also, our achievements don't define our worth because our worth is completely subjective, which means that we define it. So no amount of career success puts anybody else above or beneath me. And after reasoning with these inferior feelings, I started to question what it was that I was actually wanting for myself. Would I like to play in a pit in the West End? Yeah. It would be absolutely incredible. It was my childhood dream and I still adore music and performing. But do I want to commit to a work that I would need to do to get there? Ultimately, no. And that is completely okay. I gradually came to the realization last year that I just did not want to commit to the extremely stressful, long and inconsistent hours required and the sheer volume of personal practice necessary to have that career, because I wanted to prioritize other things in my life. And I got what I wanted from that. I think I'm almost definitely I know that I'm the happiest that I've ever been. And I don't doubt that that was the right call. So I don't actually want what Kat has, because I don't want to continue to travel down the path that she had to travel down to get there. I wanted the fantasy of a successful performing career without the enormous amount of stress and personal sacrifice. And in that moment of jealousy, I felt down because I was thinking about how she had something that I felt like I couldn't have. But in reality, she doesn't have it either. She doesn't have my fantasy career without any of the pitfalls. In fact, nobody does. And you can't be jealous of imaginary and non-existent things. It's like if you see a photo of a stunning supermodel and you look at it and go, shit, I wish I looked like that. And then somebody presents you with the unphotoshopped, unedited version of the picture that you just saw. And suddenly the jealousy dissipates. Because you can't be jealous of a body that doesn't exist. You cannot be jealous of what that model has that you don't anymore, because she doesn't have it either. But if when I'd thought about it, I'd come to a realization that I had made a mistake and I did still really want a career in performing, that jealousy probably would have shone a spotlight on that for me and inspired me to start taking some action to ensure that it happened. You don't have to stew in it and let it make you miserable. Ask yourself how badly you actually want what they've got. Check that you want it for the right reasons. And if the answer to that is yes and you want it bad, start taking some action towards it then and there. Then you won't have to be jealous of it anymore, because you can find peace in the knowledge that it's on its way to you, or more accurately, that you are on your way to it. Next, we have worrying about the past, but specifically feeling ashamed of our past actions and behaviour. Worrying about the past, for me, usually manifests in worrying about or feeling ashamed for my past behaviour and actions. I have acted in ways and done things that I am far less than proud of countless times throughout my life. I'm sure we all have. But the way that I see it, we are all born into this world as blank slates. We're not born with a clear set of values and a moral compass to live by. Those are things that we learn about and develop slowly as we get older. I'm 23 and I find myself questioning what my core values actually are and who I am all the time still. And I'm sure that there are 80-year-olds out there who haven't got the foggiest either. With that in mind, how can I possibly look back on my teenage self of over 10 years ago and expect her to live in perfect, consistent alignment to the values that I'm not even certain of yet? I can't. I don't even know if I'd heard of the concept of core values as a 13-year-old. I was doing my best to navigate this big, wide, scary world with far less knowledge and understanding than I have now. And that struggle and effort and work deserves praising and celebrating, not berating. I saw an Instagram carousel quote post ages ago that really stuck with me, and it said something along the lines of, maybe you weren't a terrible person, maybe you were just 15. There are specific things that I can remember that I did when I was a teenager, and hell, even that I did last week, that were undeniably unkind, and I regret them. I regret doing them. I regret that they hurt people. And there are still plenty of people that I owe plenty of apologies to. But in all honesty, I feel very, very little to no shame surrounding those events now, because I understand two things. Story time. Me and my mini group of friends in secondary school were slightly Disney obsessed. I remember Frozen came out when I was 12 and we all went to see it, and we were the oldest group of kids in the cinema by at least a 3-foot growth spurt. And one of my friends one day was talking about how, I can't remember exactly what she said. She said something along the lines of she thought that she looked like one of the Disney princesses, or that she could be one of them, or that she had a similar face or nose to one of them. And I immediately opened my fat trap and said, no, you couldn't, you've got a massive nose. And I remember her kind of laughing and being like, thanks. But she looked pretty, obviously slightly stung. I also remember feeling really irritated and angry at the time that she thought she was that pretty, and I felt really justified in quote unquote putting her in her place. That was about 10 years ago now, and I used to feel really guilty and ashamed when I thought about that interaction. And I don't think it's hard to see why. I didn't mean it as a compliment. I was fully intending to put down my friend's appearance, which is beyond poor. And unfortunately, it wasn't the only time that I ever did something like that. But I have so much more understanding of my brain and thought processes now, and so many more tools to use to resolve my emotions healthily so that I don't take out my insecurities or project them onto other people. I didn't know at the time, but the reason I got so angry when she said that was because I was cripplingly insecure about my own appearance. And her displaying confidence and self-assurance by confidently comparing herself to a conventionally attractive animated character highlighted that insecurity in me and made me feel beneath her. It was like her confidence and happiness was directly hurting me and causing my pain. I wasn't remotely aware of any of that, and I certainly didn't know what to do about it or how to resolve it. So, as a teenager, I did what I could to ease my own pain with the knowledge that I had at the time, which was to pull the pedestal that I thought she was on out from underneath her by insulting her, which I'm sure in my subconscious mind brought her back down to the same level as me. Subconsciously, I think that I thought that she was better than me, and I was just standing up for myself by letting her know that hell no, she wasn't. I'm definitely not defending it and saying that that was an okay and justified way to respond, because it absolutely wasn't. It was uncalled for and spiteful. But I didn't know any better at that time, which is the first thing to understand when you feel ashamed about something. I was doing my best with the knowledge and limited toolkit that I had available to me at that time. And I'm 10 years older and more experienced now, and I wouldn't ever dream of saying anything like that to my friends or anybody now for that matter. So I've changed my behaviour, and that shame has now served its purpose, which is the second thing to understand. Shame is an emotion that has a purpose. Once that purpose has been realised, we are not meant to hold on to it and internalise it and make it mean that we are bad people. My therapist told me months ago that shame is often a warning sign that we have done or are doing something that is going to or has harmed one of our relationships. So if you do something shitty, like tell your best mate that she's got a bloody huge conk, and then you feel ashamed of yourself afterwards, that is just your brain's way of pointing out to you that, like, hey, you've kind of screwed up here, you might want to do something to rectify this. If you then take action to make amends with an apology and or a change in behaviour, that shame no longer has or serves a purpose. The message has been received. Action has been taken to resolve it. You can let go of it now. Spending extensive amounts of time feeling ashamed sucks because it's such a massive waste of your time and energy. But more importantly, it's such a miserable place to be in, and for what? All that you can do now is reflect and learn, make amends if and where you can, and do better moving forwards. The best apology you can make to yourself for your past mistakes is to do better moving forwards. And you can't move forward and be a better version of you if you are still identifying with a version of you and their actions that no longer exists. Growing and staying stuck are literally the antitheses of each other. They are incompatible opposites. They're mutually exclusive. You cannot be both at the same time. There is no such thing as good and bad people. We are all just people who do good and bad things. Doing something bad doesn't make you any less deserving of happiness or love from other people or yourself. Nobody gains anything from you staying miserable, but I believe that the world becomes a better place when you make yourself happier. So, if you won't forgive yourself for your own sake, which I personally think you should, do it for the rest of us. You're only human, you deserve it. Our experiences make us who we are. If you become a person that you like, it is much easier to become grateful for absolutely everything and every experience that has gone into making you that person. And it's then much harder to regret any of it, and that is a much happier place to be in. Plus, literally every single day that you wake up to is a new opportunity and chance to say, this is the first day of the rest of my life. If you want to, you do not have to continue to identify with an outdated version of yourself or your life. And I'm sure you saw the last one coming, which is worrying about the future. Storytime number 2. My boyfriend Ed has been slogging away at his tax returns for the last week. He is a self-employed freelance musician, which means that they take him an extra juicy amount of time, And he spent practically the whole of Sunday doing it to submit it late on Sunday evening, only to get an immediate response saying that it hadn't been submitted and he needed to call them during working hours, which obviously isn't ideal. He goes straight into panic mode, is feeling sick, is worrying about, oh, what if they ask me for all my receipts of all my expenses, because I don't know if I still have all of them and where they are. He loses multiple hours of sleep over it. And then in the morning, he's up before me. I go into the living room and he is sat on the sofa looking very sheepish and says, I feel really stupid. I just checked online again and it's now saying that it's been submitted. And of course, I'm extremely pleased for him, because it's never fun or nice to see someone that you love and care about that much feeling extremely distressed. But I thought that story makes a great case for, even if you don't feel like it's realistic to try to start assuming the best case scenario right now, not automatically assuming the worst case scenario. I know that it feels like you're protecting yourself so that if it does happen, it doesn't come as a shock or leave you unprepared. But you'll do yourself more damage in the long run, because you'll end up living in a dystopian parallel life inside your head, instead of living the real and beautiful mixed lives of ups and downs that you actually have. You'll worry yourself into the grave that way. Another fact worth keeping in mind is that your thoughts are not facts, but most importantly, in relation to this topic, your feelings are not facts either. I'm reading an amazing book at the moment. It's called Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before? And it's by Dr. Julie Smith. If you're wanting to get into self-help books and you're looking for your first read, or if you struggle with depression or anxiety, I would massively recommend this book. It is jam-packed with value. There's absolutely no fluff or fodder, and I'll be incorporating so much of its material into upcoming episodes. But there's a really great early chapter on thought patterns that we often experience when we're already feeling low, that then make us feel even worse. And one of these mood pitfalls is emotional reasoning. I'm going to read a short paragraph out of the book, which I could paraphrase, but it's written perfectly in here, so there'd be no reason to. Just as thoughts are not facts, feelings are not facts either. Emotions are information, but when that information is powerful, intense, and loud, as emotions can be, then we are more vulnerable to believing in them as a true reflection of what is going on. I feel it, therefore it must be a fact. Emotional reasoning is a thought bias that leads us to use what we feel as evidence for something to be true, even when there might be plenty of evidence to suggest otherwise. For example, you walk out of an exam feeling deflated, low in mood, and lacking in confidence. Emotional reasoning tells you this means you must have failed. You may have performed okay in the exam, but your brain takes information from how you feel, and you're not feeling like a winner right now. The low mood could have been created by the stress followed by exhaustion, but the feeling is influencing how you then interpret your situation. Tax returns, like the exam example in this paragraph, can be stressful, because if you bugger them up, then there are potentially going to be large amounts of your money on the line. And when you're renting with a modest income in your mid-20s, that could potentially have large negative consequences. So, an unexpected scenario arose in the form of the initial response, and the uncertainty and high stakes caused Ed to get stressed. And so consequently, he decided that something had gone wrong and that HMRC didn't like his expense numbers, and he was going to have to pull up receipts that he may or may not still have, and that he was going to start losing a shit ton of money, whereas actually nothing of the sort had happened or was going to happen, and everything turned out fine. Something really important to note when anybody, including me in previous episodes, because I don't think I have added this essential bit of extra information before. When anybody's talking to you about trying to worry less or think about certain things less or think less negative thoughts, remember that we can't control our initial thoughts, initial being the key word. So the whole "you must never allow yourself to worry or think anything less than positive thoughts" narrative is complete BS. When I talk about us having near total control over our thoughts, again, near being the key word, I am talking about what we think after the initial thought, what we think about that thought, and then how we choose to respond to it. Having what-if worries is natural and normal and somewhat out of our control, but we can control how we respond to it and what we think next. A great response to this scenario would be to start recognizing when we might be engaging in emotional reasoning. Because understanding and recognizing an untrue and unhelpful thought pattern for what it is helps to take a lot of its power away, which is an incredible way to stop us from getting stuck on and ruminating over those worries. And that's where I'm going to finish for today. The intention was for this to be a short and sweet episode from my very tired brain to yours. Like always, I hope one little part of this chit chat could help one person, and I would really, really appreciate any feedback that you have to give or any topic requests if anybody has any. Thanks again to anybody who has given me constructive feedback already. It genuinely is more helpful than you will ever know, and it just feels great to have that little bit of extra help on what is predominantly a one-woman creation, for lack of a better word or phrase. And thank you so much for listening or watching. If you did enjoy this or find any part of it useful or entertaining, please consider subscribing or following me, or leaving me a star rating on Spotify or thumbs up on YouTube. It would really help with the discoverability of a podcast, which will help me to get this out to more people. And that's the ultimate goal, because the more people it reaches, the more likely it is to find the people who can really benefit from it. I love you so much, and I will speak to you again very soon. Bye.